The cargo container weighed more than most species could lift, but Sira-Esh barely felt the strain as she hauled it across the docking bay of Kethazara Station. Her scaled arms, deep green, and marked with scars both honorable and shameful, flexed with practiced efficiency as she set the container down among hundreds of others just like it. She moved quickly, keeping her head low and her eyes fixed on the work before her. This was survival now. This endless labor that paid barely enough for a sleeping pod and 1 meal per day cycle. But it was all she deserved, or so the universe seemed to tell her with every passing moment. A group of Varan merchants passed by, their ornate robes flowing as they conducted business near the docking ports. Sira-Esh felt their presence before she saw them, that familiar tension in her spine that came from being near her own people. And she knew what would happen next, because it always happened the same way. The merchants' voices cut off mid-conversation. They turned as one, their reptilian faces carefully blank, and walked in a different direction, as though the path they had been taking simply didn't exist anymore, as though she didn't exist anymore. To be dishonored among the Varan was to become a ghost while still breathing. Sira-Esh continued working, her movements mechanical now, trying not to remember what it felt like to be seen, to be acknowledged, to have her clan brothers sing her name in the halls of their warrior homes. That was 2 solar cycles ago, in a different life, when she had been Sira-Esh the Blade Singer, bearer of the Crystal Fang, warrior poet of the 3rd Rising Sun clan. The memory came anyway, sharp and unwanted. The Judgment Circle, her clan elders standing in their ceremonial armor. War Singer Kethvor holding her blade, her soul token, the weapon that had been bonded to her spirit in the rites of adulthood, the blade that sang when she moved and hummed when she breathed. "You have violated the Song of Ending," Kethvor had declared, his voice carrying across the assembly, and every word felt like a talon raking across her hearts. "You refused to grant the mercy of death to our enemies. You showed weakness where strength was required. You valued alien lives over Varan honor." She had tried to explain that the prisoners were civilians, that they were unarmed, that the intelligence reports were wrong. But her protests meant nothing against tradition, against the rigid codes that governed every Varan warrior's existence. Kethvor had raised her blade high, and with one brutal strike against the Judgment Stone, he shattered it into 3 pieces. The sound it made, a screaming crystal wail that cut through her mind, still haunted her sleep. And the feeling of that bond severing, of her spirit weapon dying, was worse than any physical wound she had ever received. They had taken each piece and thrown them into space, scattering them to the void, ensuring that she could never be whole again. Without a blade, a Varan warrior was nothing, less than nothing, a walking shame that other Varans must pretend not to see. The familiar ache of phantom weight pressed against her hip where her blade should have rested. A sharp whistle broke through her spiraling thoughts. "Hey there, need a hand with that one?" A voice called out in accented but clear Galactic common, and Sira-Esh looked up to see a human male approaching, his skin a warm brown tone, his dark hair pulled back in a practical tail, wearing the simple flight jacket of a civilian freighter captain. She froze, uncertain how to respond. Humans were relatively new to this sector of space, having only made contact with the greater galactic community about 40 standard years ago, and their reputation was strange. They were said to be reckless, emotional, stubborn to the point of insanity, but also surprisingly kind in unexpected ways. "That one's marked for the Defiant Sparrow, right?" the human continued, pointing at the container she'd just set down, seemingly unbothered by her silence. "That's my ship, Marcus Chen, captain and occasionally competent pilot." He extended his hand in that odd human gesture of greeting, and Sira-Esh stared at it, confused and overwhelmed. No one had offered to touch her in 2 solar cycles, No one had spoken to her as though she were a person rather than an inconvenient obstacle. "You okay?" Marcus asked, lowering his hand, but not his friendly expression. "First day on the job." Or, "I am dishonored," Sira Esh heard herself say, the words coming out flat and automatic, the warning she was supposed to give to any who didn't know her shame. "I am spirit dead. You should not speak to me." Marcus tilted his head, his expression shifting to something like curiosity rather than the disgust or pity she expected. "Well, you look pretty alive to me," he said, tapping his chin thoughtfully, "and you're doing solid work here. Cargo's organized better than half the stations I've docked at." "You do not understand," Sira Esh insisted, her translator struggling with the weight of emotion behind her words. "Among my people, I am—" "Not among your people right now," Marcus interrupted gently, gesturing at the diverse crowd moving through the docking bay. "Humans, Quellans, Draxi traders, maintenance drones, species from a dozen different worlds. You're on a neutral station, working an honest job. That's enough for me." He picked up a smaller container and hefted it easily, despite his smaller frame. "Come on, help me load these onto the Sparrow, and I'll buy you a meal when we're done." "You like protein bars? Or actual food?" Sira Esh wanted to refuse, should have refused, but something in his casual acceptance, his complete disregard for her shame, cracked something inside her chest. "I have not shared a meal with another being in 700 days, she admitted quietly. 700, Marcus's eyes widened. "That's almost 2 years. Absolutely not. We're fixing that right now. Work first, then food. Then you're going to tell me how anyone could be dumb enough to dishonor someone who can lift 3 times her body weight like it's nothing." Before Sira Esh could protest, Marcus was already walking toward his ship, calling back instructions about which containers needed loading first, treating her exactly as he would treat any other dock worker, any other person. She stood there for a long moment, her mind racing through protocols and warnings and all the reasons she should walk away, should maintain her proper isolation, should accept her fate. Then she picked up another container and followed him. Across the docking bay, watching from the shadows near a commercial transport, war singer Kethvor narrowed his eyes at the sight of the dishonored one, speaking with a human. This could become a problem, he thought. But then again, what could one pathetic human and a broken ghost possibly do? He turned away, dismissing them both, already focused on his recruitment tour and the young warriors he would mold into proper instruments of Varen dominance. Behind him, Sira Esh laughed for the first time in 2 solar cycles, as Marcus made a joke about the terrible station coffee, and the sound echoed through the docking bay, like the first notes of a song she had forgotten she knew how to sing. The station cantina hummed, with the noise of a dozen species conducting business, sharing meals, and exchanging gossip. Sira Esh sat across from Marcus Chen at a corner table, her posture rigid with discomfort, her eyes darting toward the exits, as though expecting someone to drag her away for violating some unspoken rule. "Relax," Marcus said, pushing a plate of grilled protein and vegetables toward her. "Nobody here cares about your status. Half these people are running from something anyway." She stared at the food, her stomach cramping with hunger she'd been ignoring for days. "I should not be here," she whispered, but even as she said it, her hand reached for the fork. "Too late. You're already here," Marcus replied cheerfully, digging into his own meal. "Besides, I'm curious. You move like a trained fighter. You work with precision most military ops would envy, but you're hauling cargo for subsistence wages. Doesn't add up." Sira Esh took a small bite, and the explosion of flavor almost made her weep. Real food, not the nutrition paste she'd been surviving on. Actual protein cooked with care and seasoning. She forced herself to eat slowly, to maintain some dignity, even as her body screamed for more. "I was Blade Singer," she said finally, the words tasting like ash. Warrior poet of my clan, we train from childhood in combat and verse, in the union of battle and beauty. Our blades are bonded to us in sacred rites, becoming extensions of our spirits. Marcus leaned forward, genuinely interested. That sounds incredible. What happened? The question was so direct, so free of judgment, that Sira Esh found herself answering. She told him about the border conflict, about the intelligence that claimed the facility housed enemy combatants, about storming the compound only to find families instead of soldiers. They were civilians, she continued, her voice strengthening as she spoke truths she'd held silent for too long. Children, elders, merchants who happened to be the wrong species in the wrong place. My commanding officer, war singer Kethfor, ordered the Song of Ending, ritual execution of all prisoners. But you refused, Marcus said, and it wasn't a question. I refused, Sira Esh confirmed, her hand unconsciously touching the scars on her neck, the marks of dishonor that had been burned into her scales. I violated direct orders. I stood between Kethfor and the prisoners. I said that there was no honor in slaughtering the helpless. She expected Marcus to nod politely and change the subject, to find some excuse to end this meal and distance himself from her shame. But instead he sat back and smiled, actually smiled, warm and approving. On Earth, we'd call that courage, he said simply. We have this old saying, it's easy to be a good soldier, it's harder to be a good person. You chose to be a good person. Sira Esh felt something crack inside her chest, something that had been frozen solid for 2 solar cycles. My people would disagree, she managed, her voice rough. Kethfor broke my blade in judgment. He scattered the pieces to space. Without my blade I am spirit dead, unworthy of acknowledgement, invisible to all Varan. Except you're not invisible, Marcus pointed out. You're sitting right here, eating dinner, talking to me. You're as real as anyone I've ever met. The blade cannot be reforged without the original pieces, Sira Esh explained, needing him to understand the hopelessness of her situation. And even if they could be found, only the Council of Songmasters can perform the rite of reforging, and they would never do so for one dishonored. Marcus was quiet for a moment, chewing thoughtfully. Then he pulled out a datapad and started typing. Where exactly did they throw the pieces? He asked. What? Sira Esh blinked, confused by the sudden shift. The pieces of your blade, Marcus repeated patiently. They threw them into space, but space is big, and stuff doesn't just disappear. Debris has trajectories. Stations keep logs of jettisoned materials. Where were you when they broke it? Outpost Varan 7, near the Koron sector, Sira Esh replied automatically, then realized what he was suggesting. No, you cannot possibly think. Why not? Marcus interrupted, his fingers flying across the datapad. Humans are really good at finding stuff that people say is lost forever. We once brought back rock samples from our moon just because we wanted to know what they tasted like. Well, what they were made of, same thing. It has been 2 solar cycles, Sira Esh protested, but she could hear the hope creeping into her voice, dangerous and painful. The pieces could be anywhere. They could have been destroyed by debris, pulled into a star, consumed by... Could be, Marcus agreed, still typing. Or they could be exactly where physics says they should be, drifting in a predictable pattern. Won't know until we look. Before Sira Esh could respond, a shadow fell across their table. She looked up and felt ice flood her veins as war singer Kethfor stood before them, his ceremonial armor gleaming, his blade, her clan's blade, not his personal weapon, hanging at his side like a mockery. Spirit dead should not pollute eating spaces, Kethfor said in flawless galactic common, his words carrying to nearby tables. Return to your proper place, ghost. Sira Esh started to rise, old training and ingrained shame moving her muscles, but Marcus stayed seated and looked up at Kethfor with an expression of mild curiosity. I'm sorry, who are you? Marcus asked politely. Kethvor's crest flared with indignation. I am Warsinger Kethvor, bearer of 7 honor marks, commander of— Right, cool, Marcus interrupted, waving his fork dismissively. Well, Warsinger Kethvor, my friend and I are having a private conversation, so unless you're here to join us for dinner, you can move along. Several species stopped eating to watch this insane human casually dismiss a Varan warrior who could tear him apart without breaking stride. Kethvor's hand moved to his blade. You dare speak to me with such— Yeah, I dare, Marcus said, his tone still friendly, but something hard entering his eyes. See, on my ship and at my table, everyone gets treated with respect. Rank doesn't matter, species doesn't matter, and whatever honor system you're using definitely doesn't matter. He stood up, and while he was smaller than Kethvor by a full head, he didn't back down an inch. Sira Esh is my guest and my employee. You want to have a problem with that? Take it up with station security. Kethvor stared at this ridiculous human who had no idea how close to death he was standing. Then he noticed something that made him pause. The other humans in the cantina, crew members from various ships, had stopped eating and were watching with interest, hands near weapons, ready to back their fellow human if needed. The dishonored has found fitting companions, Kethvor said finally, his voice dripping with contempt. Ignorant aliens who do not understand the meaning of honor. He turned to leave, then paused and looked back at Sirash. You will learn your place, Ghost. This human cannot protect you from what you are. After Kethvor left, Marcus sat back down and resumed eating. So he seems pleasant, he commented dryly. That the guy who broke your blade? Yes, Sirash whispered, trembling now that the confrontation was over. You should not have done that. You do not understand what he is capable of. Probably not, Marcus agreed. But here's what I do understand. You saved innocent lives and got punished for it. That's wrong by any measure I know. He met her eyes directly. I'm still serious about finding those blade pieces. You want your honor back? Let's go get it. My crew could use someone with your skills anyway. Sira Esh looked at this strange, stubborn human, who had shown her more kindness in one evening than she'd received in 2 solar cycles, who had stood between her and a warsinger without hesitation, who spoke of impossible things as though they were merely difficult. Yes, she heard herself say, the word feeling like stepping off a cliff. Yes, I want to try. Marcus grinned and raised his glass. Then welcome to the Defiant Sparrow. We launch at dawn. The Defiant Sparrow was smaller than Sira Esh expected. A compact freighter that looked like it had survived more close calls than any ship should. But inside it hummed with efficiency and surprising comfort. The crew met her without ceremony, accepting Marcus's brief introduction with the casual ease of people who'd worked together long enough to trust their captain's judgment. Dr. Amara Okonkwo, the ship's xenoarchaeologist and cultural specialist, practically bounced with excitement when she learned Sira Esh was Varan. I've studied your people's warrior poet traditions for years, she said, her dark eyes bright with enthusiasm. The way you merge combat forms with lyrical structure is absolutely fascinating. Takeshi, who insisted everyone call him Junker, was a wiry human engineer with more cybernetic augments than organic parts visible. He nodded at Sira Esh while elbow-deep in a maintenance panel and said, If it's lost in space, I can find it. That's kind of my thing. The pilot, Zrix, was a 4-armed Quellan who communicated mostly in chirps and clicks that the ship's translator converted to text on nearby screens. New crew brings interesting mission appeared on the display. Better than hauling fertilizer to ag worlds. Marcus spread out holographic charts across the common room table, showing the Corin drift and the projected trajectories of debris jettisoned from Outpost Varan 7, 2 solar cycles ago. Station logs show 3 objects matching the mass and composition of Varan ceremonial blades were ejected on the same day as your dishonoring, he explained. The drift patterns suggest they should be in this region. Should be, Sira repeated, trying to ignore the hope burning in her chest. The Corin drift is contested space. Pirates, scavengers, automated defense platforms from the war. Hence why nobody's bothered looking, Junker said, cheerfully. Good news is, most people think risking their necks for random debris is stupid. We're just stupid enough to try. The first week was methodical scanning, jumping from coordinate to coordinate, using sensor arrays to detect the specific crystalline signature of Varan blade metal. Sira found herself drawn into the daily rhythms of ship life, eating meals with the crew, listening to their stories, slowly remembering what it felt like to be part of something. Amara would corner her during quiet shifts, asking questions about Bladesinger training, about the songs warriors sang before battle, about the philosophy that connected violence and poetry. Most species separate their arts from their martial traditions, Amara explained, but Varans treat them as inseparable. Why is that? Because a battle without beauty is just killing, Sira answered, the old teachings flowing back easily, and art without discipline is just noise. The blade and the song are two halves of the same truth. Junker, meanwhile, taught her human music, playing recordings from Earth's vast musical history. This is called blues, he said, letting a mournful guitar fill the engine room. Humans made it when we were hurting, when life beat us down. We turned pain into something beautiful. Sira listened and understood. Her people did the same, just with different instruments. Marcus trained with her in the cargo bay, learning Varan unarmed combat, while teaching her human martial arts. You're way stronger than me, he admitted after she casually threw him across the room for the third time. But humans are sneaky fighters. We use leverage, momentum, psychology. He demonstrated a joint lock that used her own strength against her. We're not the biggest species, not the fastest, not the toughest, so we learn to fight smart instead of hard. On the 15th day, Junker's sensors picked up a signal. Got something, he called out, excitement vibrating through his voice. Crystalline structure, right mass, embedded in asteroid 47 Kappa. They maneuvered the Sparrow close, and Sira suited up with Marcus to do the retrieval. The asteroid was small, tumbling slowly through space, and there, caught in a crater like a shard of frozen starlight, was the first piece of her blade. Her hands trembled as she reached for it, and the moment her gloved fingers touched the metal, she felt it. A faint resonance, a whisper of the bond that had once defined her existence. It sang to her, weak and broken, but alive. You okay? Marcus's voice crackled through the comm. Yes, Sira managed, carefully extracting the piece from the rock. Yes, I am more than okay. The second piece proved harder to locate. The sensor signature kept moving, and it took Thrix's piloting genius to realize it was caught in the gravity well of a slowly tumbling, derelict warship. That's a Varan ship, Amara said quietly, studying the hull configuration. Looks like it was hit during the border conflicts. Sira felt ice in her veins as she recognized the markings. That's the triumphant voice, she whispered. My clan's ship, the vessel I served on during the campaign. The ship was dead, power cores cold, atmosphere long since vented, but its hull remained intact. They docked carefully, and Sira led Marcus and Amara through corridors she had walked when she was still whole, still honored, still ignorant of the choice that would shatter her life. They found the second blade piece in the officers' quarters, her old quarters, caught in a storage locker. While Marcus carefully freed it, Sira accessed the ship's archived logs, hoping they might still have power. The backup systems flickered to life, and she found the files from the mission, the intelligence reports that had justified the raid. As she read, her blood went cold. The intelligence had been falsified. The facility was never a military target. Someone had deliberately fed false information to Kethfor's unit, knowing they would attack, knowing what they would find. And there, in the command logs, she found messages from Kethvor himself. Messages indicating he knew the truth before the raid. Messages showing he had wanted civilian casualties to justify expanded military operations. "Marcus," she called out, her voice shaking, "I need you to see this." He read over her shoulder, his expression darkening. "He knew," Marcus said flatly. "He knew they were civilians, and ordered their execution anyway." "I was right to refuse," Siresh whispered, and saying it out loud felt like breathing for the first time. "I was right, and he dishonored me to hide his war crimes." "We're taking these logs," Amara declared, already copying files to portable storage. "This is evidence." They retrieved the second piece, and Siresh held both fragments, feeling their resonance grow stronger as they came near each other. One more piece remained. Junker located it within days, his scavenging instincts proving true. But as they approached the coordinates, Zrix's screens flashed warning. "Multiple ships incoming. Configuration matches Varen warband." "It's Kethvor," Siresh said with certainty. "He's been tracking us." The calm crackled to life. "Dishonored ghost," Kethvor's voice filled the bridge. "You have violated the terms of your exile. Surrender now, and I will make your death quick." Marcus took the pilot controls from Zrix. "Counteroffer. How about you go to hell, and we'll keep doing what we're doing?" "You cannot escape," Kethvor replied. "I have 4 warships to your single freighter." "Then you better catch us first," Marcus said, and slammed the engines to full burn. What followed was a chase through the debris field that tested every system on the Defiant Sparrow. Zrix fed navigation data to Marcus, finding paths through the asteroids that no sane pilot would attempt, while Junker rerouted power from life support to engines and shields. They swooped low over a massive tumbling rock, and Siresh spotted it, the third piece, magnetically adhered to the asteroid's iron-rich surface. "There," she shouted, pointing. "Little busy here," Marcus grunted, narrowly avoiding a plasma bolt. "I can get it," Siresh declared. "Get me close." She suited up in 30 seconds, hit the airlock, and kicked off into space as Marcus brought the ship alongside the asteroid. Behind them, Kethvor's ships closed in, weapons charging. Sirash's magnetic boots hit the rock. She scrambled across the surface, grabbed the final piece, and felt the 3 fragments resonate together in her hands. A chord of crystalline harmony that sang through her bones. "Got it," she transmitted. "Get us out of here." Marcus pulled the ship up hard. Junker fired their pathetic defensive cannons, more for show than effect, and they dove into a narrow canyon in the asteroid field. The Varen warships, larger and less maneuverable, had to slow down. "Hyperspace jump in 30 seconds, Zrix's screen announced. Kethvor's voice crackled through again. "This changes nothing. The Council will never reforge your blade." Sirash held the 3 pieces, felt them singing together, and smiled. "Then, I will make them listen." The Defiant Sparrow jumped to hyperspace, leaving Kethvor and his warband behind, and Sirash looked down at her broken blade that was somehow more whole than it had been in 2 solar cycles. "Next stop, Vera Prime," Marcus announced. Vera Prime rose before them like an emerald jewel, the homeworld of the Varen people, wrapped in clouds that shimmered with bioluminescent atmospheric organisms. Sirash had not seen her home in 2 solar cycles, and the sight of it made her hearts clench with longing and fear. "Beautiful," Amara breathed from the observation port. "The planetary ring is actually made of crystallized song metal, right? From ancient blade forging rituals." "Yes," Sirash confirmed, her voice distant. "When a blade singer dies with honor, their weapon is launched to join the ring. It is said you can hear them singing if you listen carefully enough." "And you were supposed to join them someday," Marcus said quietly, understanding. "I still might," Sirash replied. "If the Council rejects my petition," Kethfor will have legal right to execute me for violating exile. Then we make sure they don't reject it, Marcus said with that stubborn human confidence she'd come to rely on. Landing clearance came with terse instructions to dock at the petitioner's port and await council summons. Word of their arrival spread quickly through the planet's communication networks, and by the time they disembarked, a crowd had gathered. Varens who had come to witness the unprecedented sight of a dishonored one returning. Sira Esh walked through them with her head high, flanked by the crew of the Defiant Sparrow, and she felt their stares like physical weight. Some showed disgust, others curiosity. A few displayed something that might have been sympathy. The Council of Songmasters convened in the Hall of Harmonies, a vast chamber where the walls themselves were carved from resonant crystal. Elder Songmaster Veshara presided, ancient and wise, her scales gone pale with age, but her eyes still sharp as blade edges. Siraesh called spirit dead, called dishonored. Veshara's voice carried through the hall without amplification. You were exiled. You return. Explain yourself. Siraesh stepped forward and placed the 3 pieces of her blade on the judgment stone. They rang out as they touched the surface, a broken chord that nonetheless sang of what they had once been. Honored Elder, I come to petition for restoration, Siraesh said, using the formal cadences she'd learned as a young warrior. I bring evidence of my blade's recovery, and evidence of the injustice of my dishonoring. Kethfor strode into the hall, his warband behind him, his armor polished to mirror brightness. This ghost speaks lies, he declared. She fled battle, endangered her unit, violated sacred oaths. Her dishonor was witnessed by all. I did not flee, Siraesh countered, her voice strengthening. I refused an unlawful order. I refused to execute civilians. You refused the Song of Ending, Kethfor shot back. You placed alien lives above Varen honor. Amara stepped forward, holding a data crystal. Honored Council, we retrieved logs from the triumphant voice showing that war singer Kethfor received intelligence indicating the targets were civilians before ordering the raid. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Veshara raised her hand for silence. This is a serious accusation. This is human lies, Kethfor snarled. Why would the council trust the word of aliens over a war singer with 7 honor marks? Because the evidence speaks for itself, Marcus said, stepping up beside Siraesh. We recovered the data from your own ship's archives. Either review it, or admit you're afraid of what it shows. Kethvor's crest flared with rage. You dare! A human, a species barely civilized, speaking before the council as though you have standing. He has standing because I give it to him, Siraesh declared. He and his crew risked their lives to recover my blade pieces. They are the only ones who have shown me honor in 2 solar cycles. The council reviewed the evidence, their expressions growing darker as they read Kethfor's messages, saw the falsified intelligence reports, understood the depth of the deception. But when Veshara spoke, her voice was measured. The evidence is troubling and will be investigated, she said. However, the matter of your dishonor remains separate. You violated orders during combat, regardless of the rightness of your choice. By our law, this requires trial. Then I request trial by blade, Siraesh said formally. I have recovered my weapon's pieces. Reforge it, and let me prove my honor in the circle of songs. Your blade is broken, Kethfor said with savage satisfaction, and you are dishonored. The council would never waste resources reforging a ghost's weapon. I challenge that assessment, Marcus interrupted. Your traditions say a warrior's worth is proven through combat, right? Let someone fight for her, prove her spirit's value. Veshara leaned forward with interest. You propose to stand as champion? A human? For a Varen warrior? Why not? Marcus spread his hands. Your traditions allow for champions when the accused cannot fight themselves. Siraesh can't fight without a blade, so let me fight to prove she deserves one. This is absurd, Kethfor spat. A human could not last 10 seconds against a true war singer. Then you should have no problem accepting, Marcus replied calmly. The council conferred in rapid, musical Varen that the translators struggled to follow. Finally, Vesharon nodded. We will permit this. If the human can demonstrate worthiness in preliminary combat, we will reforge the blade and grant full trial. War singer Kethvor, you will face this champion. Gladly, Kethvor drew his blade, and it sang with anticipation. The preliminary combat began immediately in a smaller circle behind the main hall. Kethvor towered over Marcus, his reach longer, his strength greater, his blade a blur of deadly precision. Marcus moved like water, dodging, weaving, using every dirty trick he knew, from a lifetime of fighting in places where rules were suggestions. He couldn't match Kethvor's power, so he didn't try. Instead, he targeted joints, used momentum against the larger warrior, made him work for every strike. But it wasn't enough. Kethvor was too skilled, too experienced. A sweeping strike caught Marcus across the ribs, sending him sprawling. Blood splattered on the crystal floor. Stay down, human, Kethvor advised. You have already proven yourself foolish. Do not prove yourself dead as well. Marcus pushed himself up, wincing. See, that's the thing about humans, he said, spitting blood. We don't know when to quit. He charged again, and Kethvor casually batted him aside. Marcus hit the wall, slid down, struggled to rise. His vision was blurred, his breathing ragged, but he kept moving. Why do you persist? Kethvor demanded, genuinely confused now. You cannot win. You bring only more pain upon yourself. Marcus laughed, the sound wet and rough. Because she's my friend, he said simply. Because she was right and you were wrong. Because sometimes the fight matters more than the winning. He stood again, swaying, bleeding from a dozen cuts, and his expression was absolutely defiant. You think honor is about following orders? About killing when you're told? That's not honor. That's just obedience. You know nothing of honor, Kethvor hissed. I know she showed more honor in refusing your order than you've shown in your entire career, Marcus shot back. I know she valued life over expedience. I know she's worth 10 of you. He charged one final time, and Kethvor's blade swept up for the killing stroke. Enough, Veshara's voice cracked through the chamber like thunder. Hold, war singer. Kethvor froze, his blade a finger's width from Marcus's throat. The human stood there, bleeding and broken but unbowed, meeting the war singer's eyes without fear. This human demonstrates the song of unyielding stone, Veshara declared. He fights beyond reason, beyond hope, for a cause he believes just. This is the heart of what it means to be a warrior. She turned to Sira Esh. Your companion has proven your spirit's worth. We will reforge your blade. The ceremony took place that night in the forges beneath the Hall of Harmonies. Varen smiths worked the 3 pieces, heating them in plasma fires, chanting the old songs of binding and restoration. Marcus, bandaged and bruised, stood with Junker and Amara as they watched. That was the stupidest thing you've ever done, Junker said admiringly, and I've seen you try to manually restart a plasma core. Worth it, Marcus replied, watching Sira Esh's face as her blade slowly took shape again. The smiths added something new to the design, a small symbol near the hilt, a human hand and Varen claw clasped together, marking this blade as reforged through friendship across species. When they finished, the blade sang, not quite the same song as before, but somehow richer, deeper, carrying harmonics it had never held before. Sira Esh took her weapon with trembling hands, and the bond snapped back into place. She gasped as her spirit reconnected with the metal, as the piece of herself she'd thought lost forever came rushing back. Tomorrow, Veshara announced, you will face Kethvor in true trial. May the worthier blade sing loudest. Dawn on Vera Prime painted the sky in shades of violet and gold, and the circle of songs filled with thousands of Varens who had come to witness something unprecedented, a dishonored warrior fighting for restoration, backed by aliens who claimed she deserved honor. Sira Esh stood at the circle's edge, her newly reforged blade singing softly at her hip. And she felt more whole than she had in 2 solar cycles. The weight was familiar, yet different, carrying new harmonics from the human symbol etched into its hilt. Across the circle, Kethvor waited in full ceremonial armor. His blade, the blade that should have been retired when he took command rank, but that he still carried, gleaming with malice. He had 7 honor marks to her former 3, decades more experience, and the confidence of one who had never truly been challenged. The crew of the Defiant Sparrow stood in the section reserved for Sira Esh's supporters. Marcus, still bandaged from yesterday's beating, gave her a thumbs-up gesture that made no sense in Varan culture, but somehow conveyed exactly what she needed to hear. Elder Vishara raised her arms, and the crowd fell silent. "We gather to witness trial by blade," she intoned, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast arena. Sira Esh, once dishonored, claims her exile was unjust. Warsinger Kethvor maintains her shame was rightfully given. Let their blades speak truth. The formalities took time, the recitation of stakes, the blessing of weapons, the acknowledgement of terms. If Sira Esh won, her honor would be restored, and Kethvor's actions investigated. If she lost, she would die and be forgotten, her name struck from all clan records. Any warrior may yield before first blood, Vishara concluded. Once blood is drawn, the combat continues to death or total surrender. Do both parties understand? Sora Esh said clearly. I understand, Kethvor replied, and his smile was predatory. The gong struck, its note resonating through the circle, and combat began. Kethvor moved first, a testing strike that whistled through the air where Sira Esh's head had been. She rolled away, her blade coming up in a defensive arc, and the 2 weapons met with a crystalline shriek. You have learned nothing, Ghost, Kethvor said, pressing his advantage with a series of rapid strikes. You were weak then, you are weak now. Sira Esh parried, dodged, gave ground. She was out of practice, her body remembering combat forms her mind had tried to forget. And Kethvor was right. In pure skill, he outmatched her. But she had learned things in exile, things Kethvor would never understand. She had learned from Marcus how to fight when outmatched, from Junker how to use creativity over convention, from Amara how to see patterns others missed. She began to sing as she fought, and the crowd gasped. This was the core of Blade Singer combat, the merging of voice and violence, and hearing it again after 2 solar cycles was like watching the sunrise after endless night. Her song started with the traditional forms, the ancient verses about honor and duty. But then she did something no Blade Singer had done before. She wove in new verses, words in galactic common, concepts from human philosophy. Honor is not blind obedience, she sang, her blade flowing through forms that Marcus had taught her. Courage is not cruelty, strength protects rather than destroys. Kethvor's blade work stuttered with confusion. This was wrong. This was a violation of every tradition, and yet her blades sang in harmony with her voice, accepting these foreign concepts as though they belonged. Silence your blasphemy, Kethvor snarled, attacking with renewed fury. You pollute our ways with alien corruption. I expand our ways with alien wisdom, Sira Esh countered, and for the first time since the trial began, she pressed forward instead of retreating. Our traditions are strong, but they are not perfect. Refusing to see that is true weakness. Her blade caught his in a bind, and they stood face to face. You knew they were civilians, she said, quiet enough that only he could hear. You knew, and you ordered their deaths anyway. Who is the one without honor? Kethvor's eyes widened with fury, and he shoved her back with pure strength. His next attack came fast and brutal. The song of ending itself, the killing technique meant for defeated enemies. Sira saw it coming and made her choice. She shifted into a defensive form that Marcus had shown her, one based on redirection rather than blocking, and Kethvor's strike slid past her guard but lost its killing force. Her blade found his shoulder, drawing first blood. The crowd roared. Kethvor stumbled back, staring at the green blood on his armor in disbelief. No one had drawn his blood in combat in 15 solar cycles. "Yield," Sira said. "You have lost. Accept it with whatever honor you have left." "Never," Kethvor spat. "I would rather die than yield to a ghost who debases our traditions with human filth." He attacked again, and now his technique was flawless, drawing on every lesson of his long career. He drove Sira back across the circle, his blade a silver blur, and she felt her strength beginning to fail. But then she heard it. Marcus and the crew, standing in her section, had started to sing. They didn't know the words to Blade Singer songs, so they sang something else, a human battle hymn that Junker had taught her, rough and discordant against Varan harmonics but somehow fitting. The sound gave her strength. She remembered why she was fighting, what she was fighting for, and her blade began to sing differently. Not the pure traditional notes, but something new, a harmony between Varan precision and human determination. She caught Kethvor's blade in a lock, and twisted, using his momentum against him, just as Marcus had shown her. The war singer stumbled, and Sira blade came around in an arc that should have taken his head. She stopped it a hair's breadth from his neck. "Yield," she repeated. Kethvor stood frozen, feeling the blade's edge against his scales, understanding that she had won and chosen mercy. "You should kill me," he said, and for the first time his voice held something other than arrogance. It held confusion. "I could," Sira agreed. "By tradition, I have the right. By justice, I have the reason. But I am not you, Kethvor. I do not kill when I do not have to." She stepped back and lowered her blade. "I yield you your life. May you use it to learn what honor truly means." The silence in the circle was absolute. Then Elder Veshara stood and her voice rang out. "Sira has won by blade and by mercy. Her honor is restored." She turned to Kethvor, and her expression was stern. "War Singer Kethvor, you are stripped of rank, pending investigation into the evidence presented. Your honor marks are suspended. You will surrender your blade to the council." Kethvor stood motionless as guards came forward. His blade was taken, his armor stripped, and Sira watched without satisfaction, only sadness for what her former mentor had become. The ceremony of restoration took place immediately. Veshara marked Sira scales with the symbols of returned honor, but then she added something unprecedented, a new title. "You are no longer merely Blade Singer," the elder declared. "You are Bridge Singer, one who connects our people's wisdom with the wisdom of others. You have shown us that honor can be found in unexpected places, that strength includes knowing when not to strike." The crowd erupted in a mix of cheers and protests. Tradition keepers shouted their objections, while younger Varans applauded this evolution of their ways. Sira looked at Marcus, at Amara, at Junker and Zrix, and the crew who had believed in her when no one else would. "I am honored by this title," she said to Veshara. "But my place is no longer solely among our people." "You wish to leave?" the elder asked. "I wish to serve a greater purpose," Sira replied. "The universe is vast, and there are many who could benefit from understanding between species. Let me be the bridge I am named for." Veshara smiled, and it transformed her ancient face. "Go then, Bridge Singer. Carry our honor to the stars." Later, on the Defiant Sparrow, as they prepared for departure, Sira found Marcus in the common room. His injuries were healing, though he moved carefully. "Thank you," she said simply. "You gave me back my honor, my blade, my purpose." "You always had those things," Marcus replied. "We just helped you remember." "Still, Siraesh insisted. I owe you a debt I can never fully repay. Marcus shook his head. No debt. That's not how friendship works. You stand by people because they matter, not because you expect payment. Then I will stand by you, Siraesh said, wherever the sparrow flies. Good, Marcus grinned, because we just got a contract to mediate a trade dispute on Rigel 7, and apparently both sides are armed and touchy. Sounds perfect, Siraesh replied, and realized she meant it. That evening, as the ship jumped to hyperspace, the crew gathered for their traditional dinner. Siraesh taught them a Varen Blade song about journeys and new beginnings, while Marcus countered with a human sea shanty about sailors far from home. The two melodies wove together, finding harmonies that shouldn't have worked but somehow did, creating something neither culture could have made alone. Siraesh sat among her crew, her blade at her side, singing softly, and felt a contentment she had never known, even before her dishonor. She had learned that honor wasn't about following every rule or maintaining every tradition. It was about knowing when to stand firm and when to adapt, when to fight and when to show mercy, when to sing the old songs and when to create new ones. She looked at Marcus, who was butchering the Varen pronunciation but making up for it with enthusiasm, and she smiled. Honor was never about the blade, she thought. It was about who you chose to stand beside when the song grew dark.